Can you see it's 7 o'clock?
It is 7 o'clock.
All right, I'm going to let in. Okay, good luck, everyone. Good luck, Pat.
Okay, thanks, Rod.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Well,
Hello. Stephen's at the club.
I'm down the club. I don't. Where is everybody?
Yeah, we're all watching you.
I don't know what
we've been waiting for you, Stephen.
Yeah.
you. I can start now. I can start.
Okay.
One thing in common, we all need haircuts.
We all
It's pretty obvious, isn't it?
Just like to introduce Pat. We all know Pat, but some of us know of his culinary skills. His heritage dictates that he is fond of fine wine, fine food, fast cars, I'll say boats, and he's been a long-term member of Hobson's Bay Yacht Club, and he's going to take us through a journey of food and probably parts of Italy as well. So I'll hand you over to Pat Caruso.
Thanks, James. And thank you to everybody. I'm just loading up my file. So here we are. That's me, in case you don't know what I look like. So my journey starts in this town. This is my hometown, Malocchio, in southern Italy, in Reggio Calabria. And the shot was taken last time I was there some years ago, but I thought I'd better take a shot of this sign showing that I've actually entered my old hometown of Malocchio. So I still have a lot of relatives there, and some of them actually you'll see on the boat out on the bay later on tonight. I left Malocchio, and you can see that's where Malocchio is, right there in that the toe of Italy. And we sailed by ship from Messina all the way to Australia in 1952. So that's probably where I got my sea legs from. You know, as a 2-year-old sailing on the big ship Neptuna from Italy to Australia back in 1952. So that's probably why I feel comfortable when I'm out on the water on the boat. Anyway, that's a little bit of my background. I'm not going to go any more into Italy. I'll start off with my journey, which I'm going to talk a little bit about food, wine, and sailing. You know, food is every Italian's love, and so is wine. And I've connected sailing with those two. And I think that sailing is always far more enjoyable when you've got food and wine, and at the end of the day, that you can really relax and really enjoy the day and that you've had. So I'll start. This is one of the important things with any food. You've got to have the produce, and I'm a pretty prolific grower of vegetable, even though it's not my garden at the moment, but hopefully in summertime it looks something like that. But I love to grow a lot of my own produce, particularly tomatoes, basil, beans, and all of my herbs. I grow all our own herbs, which is what we use in our cooking pretty much on a daily basis. So yes, then that was probably, I was an apprentice to my mum for probably 35 years, I think, and until I actually got the accreditations that I had to under my mum. Every time I got out there to dig, she'd always say I wasn't doing it right. But anyway, I think I finally, after 35 years, worked out how to grow vegetables. These are probably some of our most favoured delicacies that Mum used to make, and we always used to fight over these as kids and as adults, how to make the delicious crostoli. Mum's crostolis were just always heaven. They were just so delicious, so light, and I finally managed to make crostoli, which I think were equally as good as Mum's crostoli, and my sister and brothers and kids all agreed that my crostoli that I made, and they were a couple of years ago, were absolutely delicious. So it's part of my cooking, the traditional Italian crostoli. We make these around Christmas and Easter time. More of my cooking that I enjoy, and this is good boat food as well. You know, I think some of you might have enjoyed some of my sausage rolls, and I think recently Rod and David might have enjoyed these sausage rolls. They're the recipe that I got from the Burke Street Bakery up in Sydney. They won the best sausage roll in Australia, even though I thought that they're a little bit different in taste. But anyway, I made them. They were certainly beautiful to eat, very different. So I do a lot of that sort of stuff. This is venison pies. Have you ever had a venison? These are venison pies. I do these fairly regularly. I have a brother-in-law over the other side of town in Gippsland. They have a horse stud farm, and he regularly goes out hunting for venison. And he's an absolute crack shot, and he always provides me with beautiful venison. And so these are venison pies, and I generally do a batch of about 12 each time, because he gives me the mince in 1 kilo lots, and I add a lot of other ingredients to that. And I finally perfected the venison pies. He said they're the best venison pies and pies he's ever had. So they're pretty much regular menu that we have on our table. Similarly, these little beauties here, they're cannelloni, and this is the cannelloni before the actual red Napolitana sauce goes over the top, and then they're baked. This is a tradition that we've been doing ever since I was a kid, and I've carried on the tradition at Christmas and Easter time, because they're quite laboursome to actually make. Quite a lot of time. They're a 2-day sort of event. They're crepes that I make, and then I use a particular filling that I make up myself. Of course, it has all the beautiful herbs and Parmesan cheese, of course, and then that's covered with the tomato sauce over the top. A handful of Parmesan, and into the oven it goes for about 30 minutes. And again, they generally fight over these when they're on the day, but beautiful on the boat. I've had these on the boat as well, so this is about food on the boat too. You just take one of these trays, cover it in tomato and Parmesan cheese, put it in the oven, and then half an hour later, they're ready to eat. So with a glass of red wine, of course, all beautiful things. There's something you're probably familiar with, a pizza, and you've got to have one of these ovens. This is, if anybody can tell me what that says down the bottom there, you'll get a free bottle of wine if you can translate that. You better be quick, because it'll go to the next slide, but that's the oven that I bought some years ago, and it sits out in the backyard, and it does a lot of our bulk cooking. For instance, pizzas and bread and all that sort of stuff, which I make. So if you can guess what that name says down there, El Re del Forno, free bottle of wine for you. No cheating. You've got to write this down now. That's that garden that you saw back there, and that's the guard that sits up there, making certain that nobody walks away with these tomatoes that come all out of my garden. And again, it's about food. It's about enjoying food when it's picked right at its right time. And we do a number of different things with tomatoes when I have that many. For instance, there's a caprese salad, a traditional Italian salad, which is just tomato, drizzle of olive oil, mozzarella cheese or buffalo mozzarella, of course. And they're my tomatoes, my basil, and delicious in summertime. This is my daughter Sophie, and we're making tomato passata here. So I generally do anywhere between 60 to 100. I made 150 bottles one year. It was a 3-day event, too much work. But I'm trying to pass on the heritage here, and I've been making this stuff here since I can remember as a kid, probably more than 60 years, because my mum used to make it, and I've carried on that tradition, making tomato passata, and I do it now with Antonio and I, but here's Sophie helping out this year, because we've had quite a few boxes. Here's me bottling the passata before it goes into the sterilizer. So you can see there I use a lot of basil, because I love basil and tomato. It goes together, it's a marriage. And that goes into the sterilizer, and then it goes into storage. And you use that passata for anything you like, for your casseroles, for your soups, for your pizzas, of course. Anywhere where we need a passata tomato, you use it. And the pasta sauce, bolognese, all that sort of stuff. So I probably have at any one time 80 to 100. Probably go through about 50 a year. My kids love it, and so they always share in this. This is what else I do with the tomatoes. And I've got surplus, so I semi-dry them, and got all my fresh herbs that I've placed over the top, and with drizzle of olive oil, pepper and salt goes across that as well. And I put them into the big outside oven, and they're in there for about 40 minutes until it's just sort of semi-dried, and take them out and put them on smaller trays into the freezer. Once they're frozen, they just go into plastic bags, and I use those for breakfast, on pizzas. They're absolutely delicious on pizzas, and anywhere else where you need some flavour. These tomatoes are absolutely delicious. So again, there's that name down the bottom there. But yeah, they're my tomatoes, and part of my I guess background and what I was brought up on. Next bit, we're going to any questions on any of that? Any questions? Anybody's asked any questions yet, James?
No, there's no questions, but there are comments coming through about, is it buffalo cheese, buffalo mozzarella?
Yes.
And people are sort of answering it on your behalf.
Yeah, buffalo mozzarella, of course. Yes.
Yeah. So yes, it is buffalo mozzarella.
Yes, it is buffalo mozzarella. Yes, of course.
And the name of the pizza oven, does that mean king of the pizza or something like that?
The king of ovens.
Oh, okay.
There we go. King of ovens.
Right.
El re del forno.
Nobody's put it in there. So.
Okay, well. So we're on to bread, part of bread making. This is at the Abbotsford Convent. If you're familiar with that, it's quite a large area, but they've had two huge Scotch ovens there, wood-fired ovens. They're about, I guess, the internal section of the ovens is somewhere about 3 metres round. They're quite big ones. They're huge, biggest I've ever seen. So did a bread making course there. It was about a 10-hour day. It was a solid day, and that's Doug, the bread maker, and I think he's now running the Sealy Bay Bakery in Torquay. I think that's what he opened up shortly after he left Abbotsford there, when he was running bread making courses. And if anybody's had the Sealy Bay bread, you'll know it's absolutely delicious. So here we are, all hands on deck, and in that preparation, there was only 7 in the class. There wasn't too many there that day, so we had it all to ourselves. We're making lunch here. This is going to be pizzas in lunch, so all hands on making lunch. Here are the pizzas that we had for lunch, because you had to feed the participants, and they were delicious pizzas, I can assure you. But the day was a fantastic day. Here's Dougie now loading the oven. It's a Scotch oven. To the right up here, you've got the actual fire section where they open the door and you load it with wood. And he's just explaining what he does to put the bread in, and that's a very long peel he's using there. You'll see, you probably recognise this person here. He's actually loading the oven there. There's the bread that's been made. During the day, we've made all that bread ourselves. So we, the start of the day, we had to be there at 8 o'clock. So made a lot of bread, filled this oven up with a whole range of different breads that day, which we all brought home as well. So here's me pulling the bread out, coming out of the oven. You can see the beautiful bread it was, just absolutely delicious bread. Again, something you enjoy on the boat. There's the actual end of the day. That was, I'm pretty certain from memory, these ones in the foreground were a previous bake, and the rest of that was one bake. That's how big that oven is. And I can tell you that that smelt absolutely divine that day, all that coming out of the oven. And you know what? We had to take all that home. So it was only the 6 participants, I think were 7, with Tony and myself. We had 2 huge flour bags, and I mean huge.
Later.
We just filled our boot up with this bread, and all the way driving back from Melbourne to Werribee, we were just this aroma of freshly baked bread in the car. It was just so immense. It was incredible. And we ate, I think we had bread for the next 3 months. We didn't have to buy any bread. The freezer was full. That was a malt blend. That was a high top. These were different. I think there were olive breads there, buns, and of course your ordinary sort of breads there, but it was absolutely delicious. And this is what got me going into making my own sourdough breads, which you'll see now. This is at my place, and they're my first batch of sourdough breads. It took me about 14 days to actually make my own starter, and it's quite a time consuming. You have to be very patient to make your own starter. I used Burke's Bakery recipe from Sydney. They've put out a book, Burke Street Bakery. It's an excellent book. If you're ever interested in actually doing sourdough bread, they have an excellent book that really guides you through making all sorts of breads, but certainly how to get your starter going. So that was my first bake. That was in one hit, so I put them into the outside oven, and there's the result of my efforts making bread. And I've made lots of bread. Haven't made any sourdough for a while though, because it is quite a labour intensive. It's a 3-day episode to make sourdough at home. Bakeries would actually have sourdough going all the time, so they always leave so much of their sourdough for the next day, and they feed it and feed it and feed it, so it's all ready to go the next day, which they then do the same thing again, because all you do is you keep some of your starter and you just keep loading it up and feeding it so that it's very active. There's some more. You've got a question, have you? There's some more stuff that I've baked out of my oven. Sourdough hot cross buns for Easter, of course, and some bread up there that I've baked. This is the big batch of hot cross buns that I made, and between for ourselves and my kids, that all share in that. So pretty intense sort of operation that goes on with that. There's the outside oven, and it gets used not as often as I would like. Summertime, certainly we fire it up and get it going. And one other necessity you need to have in a house, I believe, is a coffee machine. If you haven't got a coffee machine, then you're not quite... I know you don't drink coffee, Kevin, so you probably don't need one of these machines. But I've had that now for 15 years, and boy, you know, if the house burns down, I'll make certain that I rescue that. Because it's an absolute beauty. Knock out one after the other. So I fire it up every morning. It takes about 10 minutes to build up to speed, but it's a fantastic machine. And it's a semi-commercial machine, as you can see. Making good wine. How are we going so far, James? Anything?
No, comments are very relevant and pertinent.
Okay.
Some of them you don't want to know about, but we'll leave that to later.
Making good wine.
Yeah.
So this is one of my other loves, is that, and this is, you know, all these things there you can actually enjoy more on a boat. So this is where the connection comes in. I like to make it and enjoy it. And this is a video clip. It'll get quite noisy, but see if you can recognise the person that's in the video. Okay, I'll switch it on now. For some reason it didn't want to start up the way I was that was meant to be a 20-second video clip, but
So is this in the backyard too, Pat?
so you guessed who that was, I suppose. It wouldn't work. It certainly works, but it doesn't do on Zoom. It obviously needs too much memory. But here's me loading up the hopper in the crusher. There's a crusher was I generally do around 300 to 400 kilograms of grapes, so you need something that's going to handle it pretty quickly, which this machine does. And making wine. Here's my brother-in-law who grew the grapes up in Mildura, and he's helping me out with the vintage that year and cleaning out all the stems from the grapes. This thing will crush a ton of grapes in about half an hour. So it's a very fast machine. I got it from, it was at a sale from a small winery. Just looking at the finished product. Here it is in the garage, and it's going through fermentation. What happened here, what you see there is 2 buckets filled with ice. I'm trying to slow down the fermentation. It got quite hot. Must have been a hot season that year. And you want to slow down your, or get the temperature down is what I'm trying to do, because as it ferments, it actually generates heat. And if it starts to accelerate too quickly, you have some problems that you have to then fix up with your wine. And so you try to keep the temperature down around 25 degrees, not over. This white tube, you can see all the slots in, you can see the hoses. I use that to pump over, what you call pumping over the wine, or that pumps out of the bottom, and it gets sprayed over the top, certainly not when those ice buckets are there. And that releases any of the smells that can get into your wine. So it releases some of the volatile gases out that you don't want in your wine. Particularly, it only happens when it starts to accelerate in the fermentation. It's about a 7 to 10 day fermentation process. And so the smell in the garage is just amazing. It's a very sweet smell that takes place with this fermentation. And to keep the skins, you have to keep the skins wet. They have to be plunged. I plunge them about 3 or 4 times a day because down the bottom the temperature would be quite warm, and the skins actually holds the temperature. So what you're doing is 2 things. One is you're actually extracting some tannin out of the grapes, because you want some of the tannin to get some colour, and you're also making certain that the skins remain wet, because you don't want them to go dry from the gases coming out. So it's all part of the making wine. It's a fascinating thing. It takes, and for the whole week I'm there in and out of the garage on a fairly regular basis, monitoring and checking temperature and taking notes, etc. Once we've actually pressed, there's the press there, the press wine goes into these vats. I've got 2 300 litre vats and 150 litre vats, depending how much I'm making. 400 grams of grapes fills one of these containers with 300 litres of juice. The other 25% is your waste, your skins and your stems, essentially. And they're variable lids, so you can see there's the lid there, and it's got like a bike tube on the outside of it, and that floats on the juice, and then you pump the tube up, so you lock the wine down, so you don't want any air in your wine, because that's what destroys wine, oxidation, and you certainly don't want that. So there's no air at all that can get to the wine, because you lock it down with a variable lid, so I can have anything from 50 to 300 litres of juice in there without any problems. There's a graph to just show you that it got over the 25. It's probably when I actually dropped the ice in to try and get it down, and you can see it dropped down there, and here it is. We're finished fermentation. So what are we looking at there? It was 10 days or more there took to ferment that. To get it right down, you've got to get it down below 0, which it was there. So to make certain all the sugar is actually fermented out of your vintage. This is the course I did with Australian winemakers. We've just finished crushing there, and that guy up there is Richard, the winemaker, really great guy, and really knows his stuff. And I did a vintage with Australian winemakers that year, and he ran the class. This is the guy here. Looks a bit suspicious, but what he's doing here is pumping over. You can see that's the juice coming out of the hose, and he's pumping over to ensure that there's no trapped volatile gases within the wine. So that helps to release. You do that for about an hour each day for a couple of days if you're actually having problems with wine. So, and they were wine suppliers and wine merchants that were out there. And here it is, getting ready to press. So we've just drained off the juice, and now we've got the grapes in there that have yielded most of their juice, but they've still got some in there, and we've pressed that. Here's the guy's about to start the press, and that'll taste alcoholic now because it's gone through. It's actually all the sugar content is actually fermented out. That actually tastes like a wine, but hasn't been aged, of course. It hasn't gone through the second stage fermentation, which it does in the barrel. So we always get the oldest person to do the hard work. So here he is, pressing on the press, winding it down to squeeze the last of that juice out. one of the things we did there, we actually did a wine tasting on the evening, not on that evening, one of the evenings throughout the class, and to appreciate what a good wine is, what a wine that has been damaged through oxidation, and what a wine tastes like that hasn't actually fermented all the sugar out. So it's important to actually understand all of those three traits, and the one that can go off through oxidation. And that's why I always, you hear a lot of people say, I never use preservative. I can tell you, you don't make good wine unless you use preservative. And we use sulfur dioxide, which is a very harmless ingredient and an extremely good as an antioxidant and a microbial agent. And it's used extensively, certainly in the wine industry. It's perfect for wine preservation. So that was the a class in wine tasting, the three different situations with wine, and certainly a very worthy class. Now, some of you might recognise this. James, you probably recognise this, do you?
Yes, it looks familiar. That was your education night for the variety. Yeah.
Raise and Mace. That was a good night. So I did my own little presentation there on making wine. So and we had a good turn up there. I think there was about I don't know, 15 or more people that turned up.
Yes. And
it was an excellent night. But yeah, I just thought I'd show that, and everybody enjoyed it, enjoyed the wines, and enjoyed the camaraderie and the friendship and the food that was supplied as well. It was delicious. I think Stephen was the chef there.
He was master chef, yeah.
Master chef, that's right. Sailing. Does anybody want to talk about sailing? Okay, well, let's have a look what we've got here. So that's me. And if you can guess what boat that's on, before I move to the next slide, you'll get a bottle of wine.
Is that Harmony?
Yeah, yeah, a little bit of harmony there, Stephen. But if you can work that one out, and you do very well. Huh? Well, I'll give you a hint.
Grey boat.
Sorry?
The grey boat.
Grey boat. We left Mornington an hour after all the other. This was part of a charity fundraiser event some years ago, and they sailed from Melbourne to Mornington, and then from Mornington to Geelong. I did the leg, and it was intended from Mornington to Geelong, which was the best leg. And we left an hour after. There was about, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 yachts in the sail. And we left an hour after. I sort of started to get a bit anxious. I thought, gee, when are we going? Because here we are sitting up in the restaurant up there, and the skipper's there just on pretty casual, you know. And I said to Antonio, I said, oh, what's going on here? Aren't we going? Because all the other boats have gone and we're still here. But then we finally said, oh, we might wander down to the boat, and we hopped on, and away we went. And we got to Geelong an hour before anybody else did. So there's a clue.
It's not
an hour late, and an hour got there an hour beforehand.
Well, you must have known a shortcut.
No shortcuts. We were going past boats at double their speed. Does that give you a clue?
This Wild Thing.
This is Wild Thing. That's it. You got it. No, it's Wild Thing. We managed to get invited to go on Wild Thing that day, and that's the back section of the boat. That's how big it is. I think I counted there was 12 people there. You know, lots of room still. They're just wandering around. You could land a helicopter on the back of that thing, and we were doing 13, 14 knots, heading across. And we were passing some seriously fast boats, and this thing just looked like it was fairly, just like any other yacht doing, 4 or 5 knots, and it was quite an eye opener. But that was Wild Thing, or Scandia at the time. We had sponsorship from them, and it was a great experience. But yeah, so that was on that one. This is I guess my interest with water and boats goes back a long way. It goes back when I was a kid raising. I grew up in Cobram, up on the Murray, And you know, when you live on the Murray, you're up there. You're always doing something with water. You know, building rafts or whatever. We bought a speedboat there with my brother, and a clinker hull speedboat. It had a Dodge side valve engine in it, because most of the all the 6 cylinders back then, unless you had an outboard one, but they were marinized Dodge side valve whacker engine. An amazing boat. And so we used to have a lot of fun out there on the river on that thing. So it goes back a long way. And I was always fascinated with sailing. The sailing sort of intrigued me. I couldn't work out how a sailing boat could basically go anywhere, regardless of which way the wind was going. Right? You know, never sort of worked that out. And I remember watching the skiffs on Sydney Harbour. So I always watched them, and certainly the America's Cup way back in '83 when it won. And I eventually moved to Werribee in late '86, and in I think it was January '87, I actually walked into Hobson's Bay Yacht Club for the very first time, wanting to sort of go sailing, but sort of nobody talked to me. I didn't know whether I had to sort of ask or whatever, or whether they're all gone out. I think it was a Wednesday night. Someone told me to go down on the Wednesday night, but anyway, nothing eventuated. And my first foray at Hobson's Bay Yacht Club, that was back in January of '87. My next foray was on a Sabre catamaran off this very beach here at Werribee South. Werribee South used to have an off-the-beach sailing club way back then, and I went out. This guy, he said, "Yeah, come out, I'll take you out." So I went out, just the two of us on this Sabre catamaran, and it was fantastic. And I didn't know anything about sailing, of course, you know. He gave me the jib sheet, and he said, "You told me what to do, you know, when to pull it on, when to pull it off. And if I say pull it off, you know, you've got to pull it off pretty quickly." I said, "Yeah, no worries." And anyway, we were flying along, and then all of a sudden the hull come up out of the water, and he yelled out something, and I don't know what he yelled out, you know. Well, I pulled it on harder, and of course we went over, and I went straight over the top, just the top of the mainsail, and we were probably about 300 metres off Werribee Beach, and to my surprise, I could touch the bottom. So I was in water. The water was just up to my chin, and anyway, we manoeuvred the boat around, and he said, "Get ready to jump on, because this thing will take off as soon as the wind hits the sails," which it did. And of course, I managed to climb on board, and away we went again. And this little boat here, I owned for some years, and it was parked in my carport on its own trailer. It was like a V8 compared to other sort of boats that you have. Interestingly, it sailed better without the motor on it, even though it came with a motor. And it was a beautiful boat built by one of the guys from work who used to do all the building of the models that they used to do of all the dams. So all the dams in Victoria were all built on a scale model, and they were all built on a scale model here at the hydraulic experimental station in Werribee, where I worked. And he was the master model builder, and his work was just, you know, an absolute delight to see. And this is one of the boats he built. This is the last of his boats that he built. He likes to enjoy sailing. I purchased it off him after he got quite ill, and took it, and we used to, you know, I used to sail it off the beach at Werribee South. And I can tell you, once you got the hull up out of the water, it was, you really had to know what to do there, and because it used to just absolutely fly, this thing. So here it is, front on. And it went to, I advertised it, a guy up on the Hawkesbury River border that had a holiday place up there. He wanted something to actually just have on it on the water. So he went to Hawkesbury. I imagine it's probably still up there. Dutch Courage, and you should be familiar with this boat. This is the first boat that I bought, and the story with this one is that how I got into, I guess, purchasing a boat. Tony and I went to Lakes Entrance back in the late 80s, mid 80s. And you know what, when you go down there, you always go out on a boat. And we went out onto this 44-foot ketch, and it was a beautiful day, about 28 degrees, about 12 knots. And there was only about 6 or 7 of us on the boat. There was the captain and his crew, and the rest were just all the guests, and we're just sipping champagne and sitting on the edge, and we're saying to Antonia how just delightful, how so relaxing this is, you know. And she suddenly said to me, well, why don't we get our own yacht? And I said, you must be joking. I couldn't get off the boat fast enough to go and get a copy of Trader Boat. And the result was Dutch Courage that we picked up in Williamstown after searching for. I didn't know anything about yachts, and I didn't know anything about keels, but I knew I wanted a sailboat. So that was Dutch Courage, and learned to do all sorts of things on Dutch Courage. So there's the current yacht that I got, which is Chloe, and there's Dutch Courage next to her. So I just managed to take this snap when they were both out of the water and both next to one another. And so the one on the left is Dutch Courage. It's still in the club. It's out on the swing mooring, and it's still one of the boats on our club register. And this is Chloe, which I'm thoroughly enjoying at the moment. No, not at the moment, of course, but once we get out there. But yeah, it's been a wonderful experience sailing. I think what I enjoy with it is the sailing part, is the social interactions you can have between people, and the social bits that go on after, camaraderie that goes on with the afterwards, you know, with boats and food and wine. This is on the way down doing the Geelong Regatta many years ago. It's actually my first long sail, not long after owning the boat. It was probably one of the most enjoyable trips I've ever had down there, and with a number of other hobos boats that also came down there. We had an absolutely party. I think it was several times it went down there, and you'll remember. Here's just a cruiser with my rellos that came out from Italy to take in some of the sights of Melbourne. Here we're going up the Yarra River there, and we had a beautiful lunch on the boat, and of course some beautiful wine. And I said, I'll take you down into Docklands to have a look down. It was I can't remember, I think it was a hot day. I can't remember now. It was a hot day. My cousin there looks like he's got a jumper on, but it was a beautiful day. We just potted out on the water, had some lunch, and some wine, coffee, of course, which you have. And then we sailed up the river to have a look at Docklands. But again, you know, the things you can do on a yacht are just so relaxing. And talking about relaxing, food and wine and boating, they recognise some of the faces. Yeah, I think I've had about 12 or 13 people on the boat that night, because they were all sitting here in the cockpit and in the galleyway and elsewhere. That was at Wyndham Harbour, and I lost count of the bottles of wine that got consumed, and the food on that. No, that was a couple of years ago, I think, from memory. And great fun, and it was a great time down there. We spent 2 nights down there with Asterix and can't remember the other boat. There was another couple of other boats that were down there, and it was a fabulous time to have. So it's about food, wine, and sailing. They all come together beautifully. There's some familiar faces. There's another one of those times that, you know, sailing. This is after the event, and this is where we're down in a few reds waiting for our supper. And you'd be familiar with that one, Stephen. You were younger.
I remember that headache. Yep.
You remember that headache? It was a great night, a great time, and all because of you know, what sailing can bring and what you can do.
Is that down in Geelong, Pat, was it? Is that Geelong?
Sorry?
Is that down in Geelong? Is that where we are?
That's Geelong. Yep. That's at Geelong.
It's surprising we went to a restaurant. We would have eaten so much on your boat, Pat. I can't believe it.
I realise that, but you know, I didn't bring as much. I was trying to keep the weight down, Stephen. And if you can guess where this is, you can have another bottle of wine. We were sitting on the boat enjoying some wine, having some nice cheese and bickies, and this fella landed on the boat and wanted to join us. So I said, fair enough, he wants to come in. So I basically hand-fed him that biscuit. He just took it out of my hand and sat up there and ate that one. And he said, I'll have another one. So if you've been up there where I was, you would have probably come across this cockatoo. And anybody sort of come across these up at the Whitsunday?
Yes.
He's
Yes.
been sailing up there.
Yes.
Yeah. He landed up there and he wanted to join in.
Yeah, as long as they don't eat your house.
No, they won't eat the house.
Yeah.
Can't eat stainless steel wire.
Mm.
So that's the end of my my little foray into food, wine, and sailing, and how the three come together. I think they're
Beautiful.
something to really enjoy, something to really look forward to, and it's not just all about racing. It's also about relaxing, enjoying some food with friends and wine with friends, and just enjoying what you can do out on the water. It's such a relaxing way to spend time out there on the water.
Well done, Pat. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. That was wonderful. It was both entertaining and educational. Would have liked to seen something about with your red Alfa Romeos, but never mind. Next
I actually had them on there and I took them off. I did have them there. I had three of them lined up there and I thought I might be a bit long.
No, that was excellent. Great work. And I can see where the passion is in all three. Yeah.
One of my first memories of you were telling me how to process olives,
Oh, yes.
and I've been doing it ever since.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. No.
We even got an olive tree in the clubhouse there that maybe we can strip out one day.
Pat, I don't know how you stay thin, Pat. I just can't believe it.
Well, actually, I put on a little bit of weight. I just said to Daisy, I said, I think I've put on a bit around the waist because my belt's a bit tight in the pants.
Everybody else who goes out with you has ballooned up, and you're still the same. It's incredible.
Well, someone's asked me here what sort of boat Dutch Courage is. It's a Holland 25 +4.
The +4 is very important, Pat, isn't it?
+4, that's right, that pop top.
Yeah.
Well, it stops you banging your head on the roof.
Hey, Pat, we had some good jewels when I had that.
We did.
That was
We
great.
did, yeah.
Yeah.
Someone's asked me if I use eggs. It's Kevin. Yeah, I use eggs. Grappa, no, Heathcote grapes, yes. Don't use me feet. I do it all with the machine. Yeah. Let's have a look. I'm with grey hair. That's right. Hey, races that I won. I haven't won many races with Chloe. I get out there and enjoy it. It's about enjoying. And
Being out there.
we won the odd one, but we all try to win. But it's about enjoying and participating. Yeah.
Very good.
No, that was excellent, Pat. Thank you for preparing all that material to show us too.
Pleasure, no worries, everybody, and I hope everybody's enjoyed it. And I probably had more slides, but I thought, I think it was up to 50 odd slides or 55. I had more there, but it was enough. A couple more messages here. Who's that? Roy Thompson.
Lynn has learnt so much tonight, so Tony will appreciate that.
I think there's going to be some pressure on me, I suspect.
What, to actually cook or make wine or what?
No.
All of it.
All above.
If Tony, you just write up the menu and then you can tick off what you want. Okay.
All we got to do is now is just to get back on the water.
Yeah.
And that'll be
Oh. Yeah.
good. Just to get as soon as they actually loosen the restrictions with the 5K would be good too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
But anyway, it's good fun. So who's watching the footy tonight?
Well, that's the next thing to do, Pat.
If you're a St Kilda supporter like me.
Someone's laughing.
I know.
I think they'll
painful.
prime him, actually. All right.
I've got a question here from Helen and Tony. Do you take in boarders? Yes.
Tell us about the background.
That's all good. It keeps us young and it keeps us fit and it keeps us agile. Anyway.
Tell us,
Right.
Pat, tell us about the truck behind you. What's the little mini truck behind you?
Oh, the little truck. That's a little. That's one of those little things you see in Italy and in Greece, I guess. A little three-wheeler scooter thing that they use to run around. And it was actually at my mechanic's garage. I go to this mechanic, Alpha Specialist, of course, you know. And he had a whole heap of cars in there. And he had this little beauty here sitting in there. I think he was just giving it a grease and oil change or something or other. It was owned by one of his customers. But it's fully restored, one of those little three-wheeler scooter things. And interesting little car, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you had those and drive to the club in it.
Yeah,
You
Pat,
register them.
Pat, can you please define for me what a Fiat is?
A what?
A Fiat.
FIAT?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It stands for something automobile. I don't know. I can't remember it. But it does stand for something.
Fix it again, Tony.
What's that?
Fix it again, Tony. Yes.
Listen, my car's a Fiat. What are you talking about, Kevin?
Well, take it to Tony.
Yes, I do use other than Shiraz grapes. It's what I can get hold of. It was just from Roy there or somebody, was it? Rod.
Yeah.
I've used Petit Verdot. I've made some beautiful wine out of Petit Verdot. I've used Sangiovese. I've used a mixture of blend. I've used Cabernet. I've blended Cabernet and Shiraz. I've used Cabernet Sauvignon. I actually made one white wine some years ago. I did a Chardonnay, but you need to have cool storage to make Chardonnay. So it just happened to be a year it was cool, and I had an empty fridge, and I was able to utilise that. And I think I had a big bucket, a big vat, and I bought lots of ice because for a few days you've actually got to keep the must quite cool. And I made a Chardonnay, which actually wasn't bad. I was quite surprised of how it turned out. So I do other blends. It's what I can get hold of. And Shiraz is probably the easiest to get hold of. I did try to get some Sangiovese. I'd love to make Sangiovese, and because it's more of an everyday wine to drink. The Shiraz from Heathcote's pretty much a full-bodied red wine, and it only goes well with a big steak or a big lasagna or something like that. It's you can't use it with chicken or anything like that. I think it just kills it. But Sangiovese is pretty much an everyday drinking wine. But you can't get it. I can't get it. Maybe if I try hard enough, I probably could, but haven't been able to source it. I get the Heathcote from a supplier. He delivers to the door. They're premium grapes, about $2.15 a kilo. So generally 400 kilos, and I'm outlaying about $1,000 for 400 kilos. And that turns into about 300 litres of wine, which is about 450 bottles of wine. Yeah. So I hope to do it again next year.
Cheers, Pat.
Stephen, yeah. Well, you having one of those now, are you?
I am indeed, of course.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, I'm running out, Pat. We need to make some more.
No, okay. Well, we will be making
I'm down to
wine
6
next
dozen
year.
left.
Eh?
I think I've only got 6 dozen left.
6 dozen?
I'm starting to get worried, Pat.
Yes, I know. Yeah, well, my cellar's down to half full. I've only got about 200 bottles left, so I better get cracking.
All right, excellent. Well done.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, I think we'll sadly end it there.
Okay, no worries. Thanks, James. Thanks,
And,
everybody.
Enjoy the football.
Yes, we will.
Yeah.
Thanks, Pat.
Thanks,
Great
guys.
talk. Great.
Good on
Thanks,
you.
Ed.
Hey, Pat.
Thanks. And Pat, Colin,
Yeah.
Buonanotte and grazie.
Buonanotte, bella, grazie.
Been waiting all night for that.
Yeah, he's been practicing with the microphone off. Yeah.
That's right.
See ya. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Um,
Bye.